Good. What is it? It's still morning. It's 11:05 here on the East Coast. Um, got some free time to spend today with you for a little while. If you want to join me, I've got some time to have a guest on. If you want to hack with on something with me, you're more than welcome. Send me a tweet. I'd be happy to hear from you. Also, you can leave a comment in the area here, whatever way you're watching it. I'll see your comments. And like I said, I'd love to have somebody join me if you'd like to be part of it. So let me do that. And geez, so what's going on today? Let's talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to lower the music a bit. There's my computer. Let's do it this way, right? So let me lower the music a little bit. So today, it's Wednesday. I've been able to kind of get some really interesting stuff started for the rest of the week. One of those things that I have is Azure Fun Bites. That is right now on. We'll go here. I'll show you the Azure Fun Bites account. We've got a broadcast tomorrow. One of my coworkers, Pumla Schmidt, will be joining me. Yeah, I haven't logged on here on this computer yet. Great. So I'm going to show you this week's video from the Azure Fun Bites project I've been working from. And like I said, we'll chit chat a little bit. We'll see what's going on. Really looking forward to seeing and hearing from who's watching today. Yesterday, I had some really cool people join me. Austin Parker, who did Desert Island DevOps, that huge DevOps conference that was all based in Animal Crossing, I thought was really awesome. He gave me some of his time. So let me go ahead and do this. Almost had it, folks. Come on, Twitter. I love the internet. All right, here we go.
Jay Gordon, let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to Azure Fun Bites. My name is Jay Gordon. Let's get into it.
Providing access to systems and applications can be difficult, but by utilizing a centralized directory integrated directly into Microsoft Azure, you can integrate your users into almost any platform. Building an application and want to ensure your users have a single login to use the developer tools to integrate your directory in the cloud right into the applications you're building. Create roles, groups, and users just like you would on your domain controller on your local network. Reduce the work of your HR team by providing them automated ways of creating new user accounts and getting them distributed to the various software as a service platforms you may be using. For instance, a new employee will need access to the box share or maybe to Office 365. Add the user to the group and let the appropriate roles be designated to them so our new employee can get started without a ton of user creation being done across a number of services.
Hi, I'm Pumla Schmidt. I'm one of the cloud advocates here at Microsoft. Did you know you can streamline Azure governance using Azure Active Directory? For example, when you're applying role-based access control roles to someone, instead of using a user account, you would use Azure Active Directory security groups. By applying or assigning the roles to a security group, you're basically streamlining the process of assigning that permission set within Active Directory rather than doing it straight through the portal.
Add the new employee's device with a bring your own device workflow, allowing your IT team to reduce the amount of device management they'll need to do manually. Use Azure Active Directory to delegate services to a contractor or a temporary employee.
All these features are part of providing you with a secure computing environment for your team and for the users. You can see more documentation in the links, or just get started by using Azure with $200 in free credit with the link below. Thanks.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I'll be working on tomorrow.
Hey,
let's get rid of this. There we go. I don't want to have that play again. Anyway, that's what I'll be working on tomorrow. Puma will be joining me on the stream. I'm really, really excited about that. Puma is so cool. One of my favorite teammates. We've been all over places in the world, and every time it's always a really great opportunity to speak with her. She's just very, very brilliant, and because of that, I feel pretty honored that she'll spend some time with me tomorrow. So that's what's going on. Let me put some music back on, and then we'll get into a little Azure hacking today. So here we are. Will keep me up, and actually, let's do this. You can see the pugs in the space kind of thing that I've got going on, which I've been enjoying that particular look. So anyway, let me get some music on, and then what we'll do is we'll see if we can get some guests today, like we did yesterday, which was really fun. And then I'll start building something. I've got an idea what I'd like to build today. I've got some code that we can use to bootstrap some virtual machines, and then have it in that bootstrap process deploy, and that deployment will be resilient. Whereas if a node fails, it should be able to rebuild a new one. So we'll take a look at that as we continue. Let me put on some tunes. What am I in the mood for? I don't know. Will you let me know what you're in the mood for? I think what I'm going to put on is some Mr. Bungle. California, I think, will be today's tunes for at least a little while. All right. There we go. So let me check in with Twitter, remind people they can join me. I'm sorry I keep turning this side until I get a monitor that's like right here. It's a little difficult because I have to use my second monitor so we can actually I can actually see what the heck it is I'm doing. Cool. All right. And then there we go. All right. So let's switch everything around so you can see my screen. All right. So I think this is big enough. If you can't see it well enough, if you got some comments, anything, please let me know. All right. So what was I going to do today? I want to build a scale set. I think what I'll do is I'll use Linux to do so. I should have in, let's see. I should have in here a bootstrap script that I can use. If not, I'm pretty sure it's in my GitHub repository. But anyway, the reason we're going to be using this bootstrap script is we'll make use of Cloud Init. I'll talk a little bit about Cloud Init and how it helps those who need Linux virtual machines build what they need to build and have processes automated. So we'll solve a really easy problem today, which is how do I have a repeatably, reliably installed virtual machine without necessarily having a ton of chops. You don't have a ton of chops of doing infrastructure as code or deployment processes. What we'll do is we're going to get you a real entry level into this today. So let's go into React Clock Basic. Let's go into Other. Ooh. I wonder why this is empty, so let's do this. get full. Simple enough. Other. Okay, VM install. There it is. So let's take a look at this. All right. So what's cool is in the FSU 2014. I'm doing okay. Thanks for joining me on the stream. I appreciate it. I hope the FSU stands for fucking shit up, because that would be very fun. Anyhow, VM install. Let's take a look at it. We've got this like light version of VS Code built into it. So I am installing my universe repo, doing an apt-get update. I go and I grab this clock from my repository. I install it. I publish it. I start Nginx. And then I use supervisor to stop the process. Eventually, what we do is, here we go. We go Nginx installation. We create a default. Actually, what is that? This wasn't even. This is supervisor for my npm serve. So, and then when we get into it, we'll see here sysctl. So we do some tuning for open files and things like that in Linux. We'll go over here and we'll see. I eventually install Nginx. I delete the default file. I touch a file, and then I create a reverse proxy. So we're just going to be working with port 80 today. And then what we do here is we just restart Nginx and serve our website. So I've used this little script a billion times, and it builds a really simple application. I was about to start closing it like freaking Vim, because that's my brain. All right, so let's close editor. Don't save it, because I don't need to make any changes to this file. Once again, if you're watching, please leave a comment. I want to hear what's going on. Why am I getting notifications? I turned those off. Let's close all windows. I don't want any notifications. Still new to Windows here. So let's see here. Turn off notifications. I don't see it here. Here's to clear them. Yeah, sorry. I feel so like grandpa-ish doing this. Open Access Center. All right. I have no managed notifications. Sure. There we go. Fair enough. Turn them off. All right, cool. Let's get back into it. Sorry you had to watch me do a Windows thing. All right, so we've got our VM install script that we'll eventually deploy. The code that we're going to deploy, let's take a look at that. If you've watched me do demos before, not like specific demos to Azure stuff, but just in general demos. Oh. Okay, yeah, I'm confirming that. You can't do anything with that stuff, but whatever. Just showing you. Happens to the best of us when we do something live. All right, so the reason I like using this application is that it's really easy to run, and it has barely any dependencies. And when I like to do demonstrations of how to build code and how to deploy things, one of the things I really like to do is make sure that I'm building sometimes some simple things, because I think that people really, at times, they want to learn the basics. And so while, yes, there are more advanced things we can do, we can build a far more complicated application. I've chosen to kind of keep things simple for people when they're learning, because I don't really want to focus on the code. I don't want to really focus on the application. What I'm really looking to focus on here, more than anything, is make sure. There we go. Just setting something up. I want to make sure that you just understand what's going on as far as deployment. I mean, a lot of people can write applications. You can write code. You can do a lot of cool stuff. But I don't really think I need that here. This person's got a lot of related projects, all written in React. And you can see these are the basics to install very, very simple application. When it's running, it just looks like this. It's a clock. Like I said, I love using it because it's just that simple. We don't need to add a whole bunch of complexities into things, and so we're just going to show you the deployment methodologies. Okay. Delicious. All right, you ready to get started? Me too. Alrighty. So we'll go into dashboard. And what I'm going to do for now is I don't even need that. I'm just going to close that. And so the way we'll get started, we don't need to do anything here with dashboard. We can go here and create a resource, because everything that we do in Azure is a resource. And every resource exists in a resource group. So the resource that I want to create today, so we could go through here, go to compute. We wanted to, and scroll through all these things. But what I want to really do, because I want to do scale sets, virtual machine scale set. So let's click on that. So it is a ready to go kind of auto scaling set of servers that you can set policies around, and if for some reason one of those servers are to fail, it'll automatically come back up with a new replaced virtual machine. So let's go ahead and click create. So we could do this via the CLI. We could use an ARM template. But one of the things I want to do today is show you actually how to do it in the portal. I think it makes it a little bit easier. So I'm going to increase the size so you can see it. And so how will we get started? First, we'll create a resource group that everything will live in. And so in this case, our resource group will just be called Clock VMs. Just need a demo name. Okay. And this, where is Clock VMs going to be? Actually, let's see. Okay, that's the name. What we're going to do is then select where we're going to host it. We'll just use US East. You want to know why? Because that's where I am. I don't know. I guess I like where I live. I'm watching your comments, taking your questions. I'm having you on. So feel free to send me a comment. We're going to just use the scale set name of VM clock, the availability zone. So how many zones do we want our nodes to exist in? In this case, we're going to use all three, because we're going to create at least 3 active nodes in our pool. So what am I going to use? I'm going to use a Ubuntu server. I love Ubuntu. I'm sure you do. But we have all these different options: Debian, Oracle Linux, different versions of Ubuntu, Linux, Red Hat Linux 8, and then, of course, tons and tons of Windows options. I've been playing also with Windows VM scale sets. I have to have on one of my coworkers one of these days, who's going to show me how to do some of the things that I'm going to be doing today. For Windows, bootstrapping essentially. I'm going all the way here, and not only am I bootstrapping, but I'm also deploying. In the future, the better way for me to probably do this would be to bootstrap the nodes and then use a CI/CD pipeline, or just a CI/CD pipeline in general, and having a part of the process installing all the required applications and then making sure everything works against them. So that's the future. But today we're going to go very, very simple. So I've picked this image. If we wanted to also, and I just wanted to show you, you could use a public or a private image. So let's say we want to actually, rather than run the app we're running today, WordPress. So what we could actually do is set up like a LAMP server that'll run on a scale set using that image. The problem in that situation is that every single node will run MySQL on it. You won't have a centralized database. The best way to kind of handle that would be to use something like MySQL for Azure, and then change the connection string to use that rather than run local. But there's all these versions that if we wanted to, we could. So what I could actually do here is like Ubuntu. And what I could have done is I could have picked a server that's already got a lot of the crap that I want to run on it. But the problem that I normally have with those is that you don't know everything about this image. And while I'm sure these are all great, it's always been my kind of thing that if I can use a bare image and then put on the things I need rather than have a pre-baked image, I always feel like that's going to put me in a better position to succeed as far as my security decisions are concerned. Because you're making more of the decisions, I'm sure, like if I'm just using this bare, all the software that I install is going to need to be managed. And one of the things we can do with that is set up automatic patching and have all that happen on its own rather than bake a gold master and then have to do a bunch of automated patching that way every single time we spin up a new one. We'd rather get the latest version with whatever updates are provided by the vendor first, then doing our updates. So, all right. So what we've got here is our stuff. I am going to paste in my SSH key. I am going to do it outside so I don't have you see my SSH key. Why? Because once again, paranoia rules the roost when it comes to security. I believe in taking that extra step sometimes. Like if I'm going to do a live broadcast, I don't want to see part of my SSH hash. I'm sorry, just not what I'm interested in doing. So I'm just going to go ahead and cat my SSH key, and then I'm going to copy it into my buffer. Copy. Then, so what I'll do is when I go into this create virtual machine scale set section, which I'll bring back up in a second, you'll see that I'm just going to put my username as just J, and then I paste in my key. And then what I'll do is I'll click next. And so I'll bring this back over. I just want to clear my visible key. Cool. All right, let me bring this tab back over. Sorry, I had to look the side of my head the whole time. I know my profile is not the most lovely thing to always have to look at. So, all right. So we've picked our SSH key. I went ahead and I set up everything as far as like our disk, our type of options, as far as the node VM instance type. So we're past all that. Now here's the section where if I wanted all my new individual scale set nodes to have an extra disk, I can go ahead, attach another virtual disk, create a LUN, whatever you want to call it, mount it after boot, because it's not automatically just going to mount the disk and add it into FSTab. You have to do that. So we could actually, if we want to, write that into our Bootstrap automation. But we're not going to do that right now. So networking. So here's where we can start getting our application ready to go online. And so what we'll do is we're going to use a load balancer so that all of our nodes in the pool are going to deliver the application to the load balancer, then it'll go out to the world. And I won't have to do much than just have it really forward from the reverse proxy, which I didn't really, you would rather the reverse proxy serve with Nginx because there's a little bit more control and have NPM serve it directly. So I don't know, I do it that way. So the one thing that we're going to do, and you don't need to do this, I'm doing this for some troubleshooting and other reasons. So what we can do is enable public IP addressing so that every one of our backend nodes has a public IP address. And we're only going to do that for just this reason of showing how it all works today. Public inbound ports, let's go ahead and set so we can get into the machine. So I'm just going to do it, allow these public today, and then of course going to allow 80. If I had SSL, I would enable it. I don't. All right, so we can't enable accelerated networking here. It's based on the actual instance type. Certain VMs give you additional options because of their network connectivity, different generations of the VM, etc. So now what we're doing here is we're selecting our load balancing options. And so we can use an application gateway or an Azure load balancer. I've got a reverse proxy set up. All I need is a load balancer. I just want it to serve my application. We can select the load balancer. This one, it's going to create automatically for us. But if we had, say, an existing one with a DNS configuration we don't want to change, we can select that. Backend pool. What is a backend pool? It literally is the pool where the backend nodes live. So I think that's pretty easy to explain. We create a backend pool automatically here, and that backend pool is just another logical group of nodes that the Azure Load Balancer uses to actually present everything. So VM clock LB is the name of the load balancer, and it notes that its pool of nodes to provide are BE pool. Cool. So let's go to scaling. So now what we're going to do, remember I said we put ourselves in 3 regions, availability zones, I should say, in one region. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my initial instance count to 3. So we spread. And so right here, we see our scaling policy. It's going to balance across the fault domains. So that's what we wanted to do. Now the scaling policy. What we can do here is give CPU thresholds on when we want to scale out and scale in. And so right here, the policy we've got is a minimum of 10, or I should say a minimum of 1. But I think I want a minimum of 3. Because remember, we said our default working set is 3. So I want a minimum of 3 VMs. I want to balance it so I have at least 3 available, plus some scale. So let's say the maximum number of VMs here is 12, so that we can use groups of 3 to increase based on what our scaling policy is. Then we can go by scaling out by CPU. So if our CPU utilization on our server hits 75% for more than 10 minutes, then what's going to happen is one incremented VM will come up. And that VM will allow us to add additional resiliency to our application. We can see diagnostic logs of what's going on, and we can create a workspace that will work within. I'm just going to disable it. We don't need it right now, but just wanted to show you. So let's go to management. So this is really useful for things like our upgrade policy. I want to do automatic, so when I make a change to the VM set, we automatically upgrade our VMs in a random order. So we keep one up and we keep moving through. The other way we could do it is rolling with an optional pause. So this is a really great way of getting large upgrades done to your nodes with enough time in between so that there's no outage in the process. So that's if you're not going to like do blue-green or change your scale set. You're just going to keep deploying to the same one. So we'll just use automatic. And so that means that anytime we make a big major change, not to code, but a major change to the actual VM configuration, it'll start upgrading immediately in a random order. So it'll just go 1, 2, 3. Or like I said, we'll do random with an optional pause. I mean, a rolling with an optional pause. So let's do that, okay? Our boot diagnostics that we need, they're going to go into this storage account where we'll keep all the information. Here's we can use identity services for keys. Don't need that right now. Automatic OS upgrades. This is really useful. I'm not sure if it works at Ubuntu. I haven't messed with it, so I'm going to leave that alone, and I'm just going to use Ubuntu to handle my patching schedule. I'm going to learn a little bit more about this by clicking learn more about it. Let's actually see supported OS images. Okay, looks like I can use this. So okay, let's just enable it. Cool. And then instant termination. So if an instance gets deleted and I want notifications around it, I can enable that. So health. So we need to enable a health check because our application won't serve the load balancer unless the load balancer passes a health check. See what I mean? Very, very easy stuff to kind of get. And so what we can do is enable and disable. We can base it on a load balancer probe, or we can change it on application. So you can see that we can go to a specific path, or we can just ping a specific path and just make sure with that particular HTTP protocol that it's always online. So I'm just going to use a load balancer probe. Automatic repair policy. I'm not going to be using that, but let's look at it. Delete unhealthy instances, automatically create new ones with the latest instance model settings. That actually sounds like a good idea. Let's enable that. And so it means that it's going to wait 30 minutes. Oh, see? The amount of time for which automatic repairs are suspended due to state change on the VM, the gracer. All right, so we see what that, but I think we're going to just not even bother. We'll play with that another time. So let's go to advanced. So this is where we're going to use this script. So I'm going to just take this script. I'm going to just move this over here. And then what we're going to do is go to that VM deployment script. So I keep that in other, and I'm going to put a URL to this in the chat. So if you want to go to it, you can. Alrighty. If you're enjoying what I'm up to today, please reach out, send me a message, say hi, and I'd love to have someone join me if you want to. But we'll see. Alrighty. So what I'm going to be doing here is I've got this VM installed. Right? What I want to happen here is I'm going to go to raw, and I'm going to grab all this code. I'm going to pop it in here, and then we're going to talk about why I'm doing that. Oop, not the repo name, the actual code. Copy. All right, so we can put straight up bash into this, and let's talk about what's going to happen. What it's going to do is it's going to treat this as an initial startup script. As soon as the machine boots up, all the things that are on this in this script will happen. If it doesn't finish, it will fail, and we'll get a broken VM. So the thing that I did to actually make sure that this code works was I just used what's it called? Vagrant. And I just ran a Vagrant box locally. And I tested the code using the very same type of VM. If you don't have Vagrant, I really, really recommend it. I don't even think I've installed it on this new computer. Right here, might as well, since I mentioned it. 32-bit. No. There we go. So I'm just going to download that. Anyway, Vagrant is a really, really useful tool to virtualize VMs. Anybody who wants to join me, like I said, we are here. I'm going to ask y'all again if anyone wants to join the stream. Please let me know. Cool. All right, let's get back to what I was doing. So let's talk a little bit about Cloudinit. So years ago, I worked for a company, and there was this really great guy that I worked with. His name was Tony. And Tony had just been given this really, really big customer. And that huge customer had a really tremendous amount of deployment that we had to do. But the thing that was a huge part of the complexity of moving it over is that we had all these different VMs with all these different configurations. None of us really knew Ruby. And so we didn't really have time to just do Chef. And Chef is configuration management. It's a really great tool to make sure that config sets are exactly the way you want them every single time they happen. A few years later, like I would go to work for uh, DigitalOcean, and DigitalOcean used nothing but Chef to do all their deployments to all their virtual machines, like nodes. So the actual servers, the physical servers that would become virtual machine hosts. We built all that with Chef. Really, really complex uh, deployments across like different data centers with different types of hardware. So that's what we did. But that's not kind of what we have here. So what my friend Tony did was he essentially created a cloud init methodology of prepping all of the code. So he wrote a bunch of bash scripts because he knew bash. He used the tool that was available to him. And then he threw the bash script into all the startups or the VM boot ups. And based on that, we were able to deploy this complex series of applications across the entire fleet of VMs that we had. And the thing that we didn't do is we didn't feel overwhelmed because Cloud Init was just bash to us. So let's little bit about what it is. Learn more about custom data. So custom data is something that's more specific to Windows, but specifically for here, you can see custom data is placed in this directory. In Linux, it allows us to run bash as with an agent. So Cloud Init accepts multiple formats of custom data and scripts. So it's really, really useful. The one thing I would not say you should do is place sensitive stuff. Completely agree. You don't want to pass a password into this type of thing. You can use a secrets locker or something like that. So what you can see is we've got other like configuration code is infrastructure as code, and the configuration as code type of tools here for deployment. But we just, like I said, we went to this Cloud Init, which is nothing specific to Azure. Cloud Init is a Linux thing. It's very, very useful. I definitely recommend if you're first wanting to learn how to do these types of deployments, give this a shot first. So as you can see, we talked about it earlier. It's just this script with everything that we want to have happen when our server boots. So let's go to the rest of the allocation. Enable scaling beyond 100 instances. No way. Absolutely not. Force evenly. We're going to leave these, the spreading algorithm as the default. And then we're going to pick our VM generation. Let's see, generation virtual machines support most 64 versions of Linux and more current versions. So, yep, we have a current version. You can see it's a UEFI boot architecture, increased memory, all the things we really would like to make use of. And because we're not using disk encryption, because it's just a demo, this is fine for us today. Let's go to review and create. And so this is where we could actually keep an ARM template of everything so that if we wanted to do another similar deployment, we could just rerun the ARM template. You can download it here. It's just going to come in a zip file with some JSON. Or you could save it to a kind of like a locker here in Azure that will allow you to eventually run this from like an area that you just save it. So we can go here to create. And so now it's going to go through the entire process of what we'll watch it. So let's watch the deployment. It will create a virtual network. So the actual network that all the network translation or all the like different application networking will all happen on this virtual net. It's going to be internal. It'll help us set up all of our rules for firewall, things like that. Then what's here is a diagnostic storage account so that if we have, oh, what happened? Okay, so this particular image doesn't support our automatic OS upgrades. So what I think I'm going to do, and see, it's cool to learn what is and what isn't supported, is I'm going to delete this deployment. And then what I can do is go back to my template here. And let's just change that parameter. So I feel like we're going here to the here. Let's see. All right. So I'm gonna make this easier for myself. I don't know if I can edit this directly. Let's see if I can. So let's find it. Should be somewhere over here. Automatic upgrades. Upgrade policy right here. All right. This is going to be a little bit more than I want to do at the moment, so we'll just back up a little. All right. So let's just build it again real quick. I already explained how everything works. I think you can follow along. The only thing I'll do differently this time is I just won't turn that service on. Sorry, I didn't realize that wasn't supported quite yet. So let's see. So we'll do. There we go. Sorry. Virtual machine scale set, like we said before. I'm going to go and look at the images and find out which one's supported because I want that automated upgrade. It says it's there, so let's check it out. So Clock VMs, we'll just call it Clock App. Actually, we'll just create another new one. Clock App VM. I'll delete the other stuff from the last time. I get to be cloud privileged, so I don't have to worry about leaving stuff around for too long, but I do delete it. All right, let's go through this process again. I know, I'm paranoid, but whatever. I'm going to do what I feel is the right thing to do in this situation when it comes to security. It's not the most fancy way of being secure, but it certainly is better than showing everybody my SSH key hash, right? If you're watching, I'm very, very thankful. Appreciate your time today. I know I keep retweeting myself, but I want people to join me. It's really cool to do this stuff with you. All right. Where is my bash terminal? That's running slow. All right. Then let's see. So where does it keep the Linux drive mounted? Okay, I think I gotta go. I think I'm making this harder for myself than I really need to because that's what I tend to do. So I'll just hurry the F up. I really apologize that I'm taking my sweet time here. Because you got busy stuff to do today, and I don't want to use up all your time because I appreciate it. All right, I got my key. All right, it's taking me so long. Copy. We'll go into this bad boy right here. All right. And I will paste in my super cool key. All right, my super cool key is back and we are in business. Like I said, I'm sorry for the networking that I screwed up before. Go back in here. We'll say allow imports. Enabled. Cool. we are almost done with this process. Scaling. We want our load balancer. Yes, yes, yes. Scaling. 3. Custom. 3. 12. The minimum number of VMs that we have online. The maximum is 12, so we don't go crazy and spend too much. We're going to leave all that as default. We're going to go ahead and leave all this as default. Okay? Cool. Because we want to get this thing going. We need to have health enabled. Right? Why? Because we are running a load balancer. Remember, let's go back here to network. And because of that, we need a health policy. Like I said, we're going to use a load balancer probe. Leave those off. Advanced. This is where we're going to go ahead once again. I'm going to grab my code with my VM bootstrap. And then we're just going to say enable behind 100 is no. We'll use the generation 2. We won't use proximity groups because I don't care if the machines are right next to each other. I'm not doing anything that needs extreme low latency. Cool? All right. So let's click create. And let's go through that deployment process again. So one of the things I really love about Azure is I love when I get to see this deployment process. I love to see that things are going on and I can see each step, because when that failed, I knew exactly the point it failed in before, and I knew exactly how to repair the problem. And so all these resources are done. It's creating a storage account, and then eventually it's going to create the scale set. Yes, unless it fails. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching. Ernaxes? I don't know if that's a real name or it's just a random thing, but thanks for watching. I appreciate it. So this is going to take a few minutes, and while it's going, I'm going to show you one of the things that is really, really awesome about using this. So we can go here. Once everything's created, let's go into the resource group where everything is. And so we're going here. This is our actual scale set. These are all the supportive resources. So the security group, the virtual network, the storage account where our diagnostic information is, our load balancer, the public IP, and the actual virtual network NIC, like a virtual network interface, like a card plugged right into the machine with a piece of cable plugged into it. All right, so let's go here to clock out. This is the scale set. So these are the nodes that we said we want to create. These are the individual instances that are being created, right? Then what we've got going on here is one of the coolest things. So we can go here to one of these running nodes, right? And we can actually look at the serial console. I love watching what's going on. It's just so now what we're doing is we're at the serial console of this virtual machine, and I get to kind of watch the deployment happen of the cloud init in the background. So I actually know it's working. And so I don't have to do this. And I don't need to really run this if I already know that my deployment bootstrap code works. But I get to watch this because I'm a dork and I like watching this stuff. So our actual physical resources, our infrastructure, is all finished. So I can just go to the resource. That means that all these things that we wanted to create are ready. Our scale sets up. And when I say up, I mean the actual individual instances are online. I got tons of them here too. So let's go to scaling and let's look at the policy that we currently have. Our instance counts. They also scaled a bunch. So these are right now high, and this is a very silly thing that I did. They're very, very high because all these machines booted up with probably high CPU utilization because of the process of booting everything up. Anyway, so let's look at the OS for this particular VM scale set. We get all the information. We can update the custom data if we want to make a change if there's a new version. And like I said, we can look at each individual VM. We can create a continuous delivery pipeline. So we can actually integrate where our code gets deployed to, so we don't have to use this in the future. So what we can actually do then is use Azure DevOps to deploy our future code updates. So go and grab this repository, do the build of the code, and then automatically deploy it based on whatever is online. All right, so when all these instances are done creating, in theory, if we go back to our overview, in theory, this IP address should bring up our application with our nodes backing it all up. So it's probably still in the process of creating those back-end nodes. So none of the health checks are going to pass. So we need to wait for all these instances to go online. And then eventually what we need to do is all the health checks for the load balancer probe to pass. And when that happens, that means all of the instances are able to connect to port 80 and then deliver the application. That's when then all the nodes will become available, and that this IP will eventually serve what we're looking to have served. So let us go and take a further look at what's going on here. Went a little too far back. Okay. So I'm going to go back to overview. I am going to look at networking. And here we can see we've got SSH open. We've got port 80 open on our nodes. Let's back up a little. Let's go back to overview. We'll go to our resource group. We'll look at our load balancer right here. We can look at the configuration of the front end. And so let's see what the LB rule here is for port 80. So here's our load balancer rule that will eventually go from port 80 at the front. It's going to be serving from port 80 at the back end. This is the timeout of how long to keep the connection open. So keep alives, TCP resets. You can create implicit outbound rules using SNATs. So let's figure out where our app deployment is at this point. So we're going to go back to our scale set. If anybody has any questions, I see we still got some people watching. I'd love to hear from you. So we haven't finished our health check being passed yet. So let's take a look at what's going on the back end. So let's go to an instance. Let's go to one of these nodes right here. So we'll go to 0. We'll go to serial console. Okay, it looks like this node is done. Yep, reach cloud target, a cloud init target, which means it finished all the scripts. So if we go back to this instance, there we go. There are 3 nodes. They are running healthy. Let's go ahead, refresh that. Looks like my clock is about to come up. Still kind of loading. There we go. So let's kill one of the nodes. All right. I mean, that's really the test here is like, great, the application deployed, but what happens when I kill a node? So I'm just going to go here into clock app. I'm going to connect to it. So SSH. And it's just going to tell me what to do here. So I can just grab right here the IP address of this individual node. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chaos monkey the thing. I'm just turning it off. All right. What the best way to automate SSL? This is a really good question. I think Let's Encrypt is probably the best way to do it for free, to actually have like a self-signed certificate. And then you actually have to put the SSL key management into your deployment process. So load balancer support, keys, your own like certificate that you're going to run. It's not necessarily related to this, but these are the ways that you can use SSL and terminate the HTTPS connection using your own signed certificate. So you can go get a signed certificate, add it, and then eventually, okay. Anyway, let's see. We got another one. Hey, someone else got a question. Breaking Node. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Breaking Node apps are so easy and fun, and it's one of the best entry-level ways of getting things to work and understand. It's like showing people that all you have to do is go into a node and say, all right, so let's look at what happened. Let's do the post little like mortem on our application installation and look at the VM and what happened. All right, so first thing I'm going to sudo. First thing I'll look at dmessage because I'm an old sysadmin and I love taking a look at dmessage. I like seeing what happened during the boot process, and you can see everything seemed to load up as we expected. No problems. Great. So let's also look where we wanted to make sure everything was running. So we're going to go ps aux.gov. I'll just pipe it into more. But here's the section we'll start to see what we're looking for. So we see they've got all these different agents running. We've got this WA Linux agent that manages a lot of things for Azure on the back end, so you don't actually have to do it. Then here's NPM, and that's actually what's running our application. You can see here, here's the live server that Node is started through the package JSON information. And then I have Nginx here running. And so if I just do a curl localhost, it renders the actual website. So let's do a really fun thing. Alt-P. I would not really recommend you ever just Alt-P anything in a production application. It's probably not a great idea unless someone tells you to do it. But the reason I'm doing it here is to make a point. So let's do a refresh. The node is down. Let's go to instances. And there it is. It's unhealthy. It's stopped. So let's see what's going to happen. It'll probably wait a few minutes. And then what it'll do is it'll start the process of replacing that instance and getting another node in. Or we can just do this. So let's just delete this instance. Sure. And so now it's going to delete. And so what will happen is it should just automatically provide you with a new node. The other thing that we can do here is we can go into this one. And now this time we're not going to just delete it. This time we're just going to break something on it. So I'll copy the SSH path. I'm still not used to this Windows keyboard that I'm using. I ordered a new keyboard to kind of make my my situation a little easier. But this cheap keyboard that I got with this new off-lease Amazon machine, I bought this i7 desktop computer. It's the first time I've owned a Windows desktop in, I don't know, 10 years. And I've been able to really relearn how like Windows systems administration and management works. Anyway, so let's go in here, sudo su -l. And so let's kill -9 Nginx. Kill all, my bad. Okay. So now let's do a curl localhost. Okay. Now let's go into here in the instances. And let's refresh. And so there is showing me right here that this application is on, or this node is online, but it's unhealthy. So our clock 0, let's see what's going on here. So yeah, clock 0 was replaced. And right now it's building its replacement server, clock app 1. Or I should say, no, 7. 7 is the replacement. And then clock app 1 is unhealthy. What should happen eventually is it's the same situation. It should just go ahead and replace it after the health check fails for a certain amount of time. So let's look at what our health check is set a time for. So it's going to be about 5 seconds it's going to take for that failure, and then go ahead and repair it. So let's look at what automatic. Yep. So let's turn on automatic repairs, and let's change the grace period to 1. So for 1 minute, if it's offline, we'll automatically. Oh no, we have to use 30. I guess they don't want you to doing that many calls to the API. That's what it is. All right. So automatic repair is on, so it'll start repairing and replacing our failed nodes. I think that's really all we're going to do today. Our website, no matter how much we keep breaking it, it should stay online. It looks like it's trying to go to a node that probably was just coming up. And so you can see the website's online. And so let's finally do a couple things before we finish up. Let's look at some of the monitoring alerts and metrics as far as what's going on here. So if we go into Insights, we're going to get some information about all of our VMs, so we can just enable it, and then what will happen is we'll get a lot more visibility into everything about our individual nodes. Insights is really, really useful. It's just a very deep monitoring tool. You won't have to go and use another third party. I think it's really been useful. So there we go. Go to resource group. So it's updated the health repair. And let's see what's going on here. So I believe our health repair should be configured now. So when nodes fail, we replace them. Let's go back to instances and see. So not yet. All right, because it's going to take a half hour. All right, so then what we're going to do is go to these 2 machines that seem to be broken, and let's just re-image them. Okay. Yes. It's just going to re-image them. It'll rerun this and give us 2 brand new fresh versions of these 2 instances. And that's before we actually go and make any changes automatically through auto-scaling. The other things that we can look here are alerts, so that we get notified when something happens. So an alert rule, something on the resource group, the condition. So we can say when percentage of CPU, what we're actually making our scaling policy based on. If we say that it's greater than 75%, which is our scaling policy, we can eventually have an alert created, and that alert can go to a target that we want. So these are important ways to ensure that after you've deployed, that you retain some reliability in your application and know when things happen. All right. I think that's just about it. This is like one of my favorite Melvin songs. So I think we'll just start wrapping up a little around this. We've built all this stuff for Azure. I think it's time to delete it. Okay. And so deleting it. So let's show you how to delete it from like my local Windows terminal. And so if you're using Windows Terminal or any other type of terminal, what you want to do is install the AZ CLI. So AZ CLI, it's the Azure command line interface that allows you to manipulate and edit all your different resources in Azure. It's a Python application. I just Control-C'd it. So what we're going to do here is just to show you is we can type AZ group list output table. And so what this is going to do, it's going to make a call to Azure Resource Manager. And it's going to tell it, I want a list of what nodes, or I should say what resource groups are currently configured in Azure. It may not be authenticated. Oh, no, I am. There we go. It just took a little to query and get all that information. So these are all my current resource groups. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these two. So what I could have done, and someone mentioned this to me yesterday, is I could set up a functions job. And I think that's the next thing I'm going to learn, probably teach myself an Azure function that if I have a certain type of tag, it'll just delete it. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to start tagging all these. And tagging can be done right here, just metadata tags. So what I think I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start doing name, whatever, and then I think I'm going to give them application type as a key, and then I think I'm going to put the value as demo. And then what I'll do is I will create this type of metadata then to query against and eventually delete resources associated with any with any resource group with the name, with the application type value of demo. All right. I think you can kind of get it. Do you understand what I mean? Is that I just want to automate deleting these by every time I create them having a tag that's associated with application type and making the value demo. So maybe I have an automated job that deletes all my demo applications every other week if I forget it. I could do that. So let's just do the simple one today. I'm going to delete these two resource groups, the clock VMs and the clock app VMs. So I'm just going to do it like this. So instead of list, we'll just group delete name clock VMs. I don't think you can do multiple at the same time, but let's see. I'm pretty sure you can. Clock app VM and then -y to say yes, I want to. Let's see. Yep, I didn't think so. I'll see if I can do it like this, and if not, then let's check it out. Maybe. Yeah, okay, cool. We'll see. And we can check what's going on as far as, because all of the things we do in Azure Resource Manager, they're here. You can see the stuff here in the activity log. Cool. So here's update resource group. There you go. All righty. So we're going to let these delete, and that's it. And then we'll be done for today. I will log my butt out of Twitch, but I think right now we'll finish up with some just music and chit chat. So if you have anything to talk about, send me some comments. If anybody wants to join me just to talk about music or anything else before we finish up, or talk a little bit about what we worked on today, love to hear from you. If not, I think I'm just going to play one more song and then close out. What do I want to listen to? Yeah, I think this is what we're going to do. I think we're going to listen to Chokehold. A Chokehold song. All right. So it's been really cool hanging with you all this week. These two streams have been fun. Reminder, you can check out my stream tomorrow for Azure Fun Bites. It's twitch.tv/Azure Fun bites. There you go. There's the URL. Um, Anything else? Love to hear from you. Thanks again for watching. Let's check out this song and head out. Okay.
Happened so slowly. It happened to us. We just never quite realized what was happening. Little by little, it was taking place right in front of our eyes. Because we didn't care. I mean, we really don't care. So the great American dream has become a hideous American nightmare.
Somewhere along this line, we were stripped of identity, creativity, developed this cheap mentality of following everything. Culturally, we are renegade. We're such a sick card, an infomercial, and I can to see your nation reduced to a full tailgate or follow the leader. They have a world, reaching for the American dream. Trapped in the 9 to 5, like women upstream. New ones that can tell you, free thought is bound to fail. You're dying, no one seems to care. You're busy rushing to a go-nowhere career. Think you're free, you just can see the bomb. We're all prisoners in this free country of ours. You're not free, you never were. You're not free, you never were. You're not free, you never were.
Why do we spend the best years of our lives in slavery to make ends meet for the worst? The first 55 years of our lives belong to them. We'll celebrate our last dying 15 the way we should have celebrated the first 55.
Freedom doesn't come from 9 to 5. Freedom is at our disposal. Time to stay alive. Time to be content with dying. Content with dying. Content with dying. Content with dying. Content with dying.
Hey, it's Jay. Today we're going to work together and learn how to do some new interesting stuff. So I'm using Windows today. I haven't used Windows for operations and systems engineering, systems administration in years. And so I wanted to kind of learn how to do this as far as building a website, modifying it, and using CI/CD pipelines using Windows, because you can use just about any type of operating system, any platform, anything. It doesn't really matter. Azure makes it super easy using the portal, using all those other tools. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to go ahead and build something new today. So let me go ahead and change some of our source here. So I'm going to put me down there. I'm going to close me right here. And then let's go ahead and take a look at my desktop. Okay, so you see right here, it says Azure getting started, made easy, launch an app. So what we're going to do is use this DevOps starter kit. The easiest way to get to it, if we go here, we create a resource, and then we can type DevOps starter. So what we're going to do with the DevOps starter kit is we're going to launch an app very easily. We're going to let the DevOps starter kit kind of draw our CI/CD requirements out. So it's going to create everything we need. So all we have to do is go here, go to DevOps starter, click create. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to deploy to a Windows virtual machine. So I've done a lot of things around application deployment with containers, but what we're going to do is something really simple. One, we're going to use this new web app. We're going to load it onto a virtual machine where our deployment is going to be. So the first thing we're going to do, like I said, we're going to go here to the DevOps starter. I'm going to pick .NET, and then we're going to deploy it to a virtual machine, because you may have a need to deploy an application like a .NET app to a virtual machine, and you want to create CI/CD pipelines so that deployment can happen. So what we'll do here is go to next. We're going to choose the language, the runtime that we'll work with, and we'll just use ASP.NET. We'll click next. Service. So it'll ask me where I want to deploy it. So we have these three different options: a Windows web app, which will eventually containerize the application and deploy it to a fully hosted web service; a function app, a serverless type application, so we could run, say, an API or some sort of job on demand; and then there's a virtual machine, which is a full computer. So what we're going to do is, let's say we have an older app and we need a full computer. So we're going to do virtual machine. I'll click next. And so now we're going to give the opportunity to create an Azure DevOps organization. So let's do this. I'm going to go to additional settings first, and I'm going to create a new Azure DevOps organization. I need to do this under mine. So we don't want to use one of these existing organizations. We want to create a new one. So we'll go here to yes, and then we'll just name it ASP.NET Starter. Okay, simple. We'll pick where it's going to be started. Here we'll just use Central US, a VM. We'll give it a resource group. That's a group for our resources and where we're going to keep it. So we'll just call it ASP.NET RG VM. Just something simple. We can choose the username that we want to log in with. We can choose our operating system here. I'm going to use 2016 Data Center. We can choose application insights for metrics and other information, where that'll be stored. That's really important for GDPR. If you don't want to have data stored in the US and it's a European region requiring GDPR regulations, you'll want to make sure you take care of that decision first. So we'll click OK. And so now we actually have to give things names. So we're going to give this a name, and we'll call it VM.NET. Okay, so that's going to be what it actually names our project in Azure DevOps under this ASP.NET Starter organization. The subscription, that's how we're going to bill it to my subscription. The name of the virtual machine we're going to create, the location. Here's the size. So we can go right here. We can change the size of the VM. We'll use this default one, the D2S V3. We've got lots of different choices, but we're going to use this one for right now. So next, we're going to click Done. So let's talk about what's going to happen. So we are going to have created for us. We don't have to do any of the YAML. You don't have to sit and write pipelines. We don't have to even, as you see, log in Azure DevOps. What we've done is allow our tool within Azure to create a full CI/CD pipeline within the DevOps Starter Kit. So let's look at the deployment, and we'll talk about what's going on. But always remember that if you want to replicate this deployment, you can use Azure Resource Manager templates. You can save this template. You can modify it. As you can see, we've got all of our information within here as far as our resources are concerned. We have our parameters. That's in a JSON file with our schema. Okay, it looks like our DevOps starter project is done. So we can go to the resource. So let me explain what this is going to do. This isn't where the VM is. This is a resource group that's going to give you just like an outline of how everything is configured. So we have a repository called vm.net. It's going to pull from the master branch. And every time that happens, it's going to build using CI in Azure DevOps. And then it's going to do our build. And after it completes our build, it's going to drop everything via this continuous deployment release to our server. So let's step through everything, okay? So right here is vm.net. What is this? This is the repository where our code is held. And in this case, what's really great is the DevOps Starter Kit is going to give you this sample web application. And if we go into views, we go to home, we can see there's an index file. If I want to, I can make modifications here. All right. So what's really, really great about this, what's super awesome, is that we've got a full CI/CD pipeline. That means that anytime I make a change and commit something to master, it's going to kick off the trigger to then begin this process of build. So look, our build finished. Let's go to the build results. And right here, we see our build. The job was done. Let's see how everything worked. So the build process got kicked off when our CI process here found the trigger, and then it initialized the job. And so it downloaded all the required tasks like NuGet, VS Test, VS Build. These are all required so we can actually build our application. Then after that, it checks out the code from the repository. It gets NuGet to get all the required dependencies. It does a NuGet restore. Then it starts to build our code. So it uses .NET, starts building our application, tests any tests that we have. And we don't have any tests set up because we're just using our demo app. We'll start pushing our symbols. We'll copy the ARM templates to actually build the infrastructure. We'll create our artifact, and that's the build. It's stored in, say, a zip file. Then that zip file, or however it's packaged, is deployed right to our repository via Git. So it doesn't look like it did it via a zip, it did it via Git. And then after that, it finalized the job and then takes the drop or the archive that's created from this, and then it deploys it over here to dev. So it does essentially what it needs to do to make sure our build happened. And so let's go to our build, and what's next is this CD pipeline. So this CD pipeline, once our CI is configured, is kicked off. Here's just some information. And so we'll see right here, the deployment is going on, and we can go into in progress, and we can look at what's actually going on. So we downloaded that artifact, the drop after the CI was finished. And you can see everything is kept there. It downloads all the information, the JSON, everything, the template that needs to actually be used. And so we'll look at our next task. And then so now it's actually creating the resources. So the virtual machine, the network, all the things that are required to actually build it. And so what we'll do is we'll go back over here. And we'll see we're over here, and we're looking at this pipeline, but what we can actually do. And so I'm going to go to resource groups. And we'll see. I'm just going to pare down my subscriptions a little bit. So we'll see that there's a resource created right here. I believe this is it, the .NET VM. And so there's our DevOps Starter Kit. And then we created what I believe was called ASP.NET Starter as our resource group. This is another one. Sorry. Let's see. .NET VM, here it is. Sorry about that. And so here's actually where the virtual machine is being created. And so our deployments are still going on. Actually, I'm looking at the wrong one again. I'm so sorry. This is the one we created. I've done some demos before testing it. So what happened is we've got this resource group that gives all the information, or I should say stores all the resources that contain our application. So if you go here to vm.net, we can actually see the virtual machine that's created. We look here at continuous delivery. If we wanted to, we could set it up this way. However, what we've already done is set up everything via here. So now if we go, we'll see that all of our pipelines have finished. Our resources are still creating. It's almost done. But I want to show you the actual pipelines themselves. So let's go to pipelines. And we're going to go to the VM.NET CI pipeline, which is what built our application today. So what we'll do is we can manage security, order a pipeline. But what we're going to do here is click on the pipeline that we've created. Now we can run it, or we can edit it. So we're going to edit it just to take a look at what's in here. So here are all those jobs that we saw being run. It's all done right here. All these are created for you, and that's each part of the deployment and build process. So we can see here are all the things that are done. We copy an ARM template, then we eventually publish our artifacts. So that's just our CI pipeline. Let's go to our release pipeline. And so that's still running because it's probably still creating the virtual machine and getting everything deployed. But we can go ahead and click here, release 1. And so we'll do kind of the same thing. We're going to go here and we're going to click edit pipeline. And we can look at the release pipeline as well. So drop is when we get that artifact from our CI process right there. Then we go to our actual stages of what happens when we do the deployment. So right here, we create our Azure resources. We've got all of our information that was populated by the DevOps starter kit, and then the deployment. So it's going to deploy everything to a deployment group. What is a deployment group? It's a group to deploy to. Pretty simple, huh? And then once it begins that, it's going to create a website in IIS, and then it's going to deploy to that IIS website. And then we have the ability to add variables, like here our virtual machine's password, retention through to retain and release, different options, and even the history of our releases. Okay, so let's go back to pipelines. Everything's finished running there. We'll go to releases. Still running. No big deal. Almost done. But let's talk about what's going to happen when it finishes, okay? And then so we're ready to go there. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back to the DevOps starter kit for this deployment. Cool. So let's take a look at it right here, this application endpoint. So what this actually did was it took care of actually creating a fully qualified domain name with HTTP access, port 80. And if we go ahead and click this, we can see that IIS is up. So IIS is online, but it hasn't finished provisioning everything for our server. If we go here to the pipeline job CI, we want to look at the release pipelines. Let me close that window. We'll look at the release, and we can tell that we're still doing what it is we need. So it's just deploying the template for our Windows server, and what it's going to actually do in that process, aside from just install do our deployment, but it's going to create all the resources we need to actually do the .NET deploy for our apps. So it's going to create Windows, set up all the networking, ensure the NAT's created. Okay, we're almost done. After that, it's going to then take all of our compiled application and drop that application with a fully configured ASP.NET and IIS website. So let's take a look at where we're going right here. Okay, so this is almost done. I'm going to pause, and when we come back, I'll show you the pipeline completed, and once that's completed, we'll look at the website, then we'll make a change, okay? And then we'll talk a little bit more about deployment groups. So we'll be right back. Okay, so our agent job here and our finalized job deployment group here is, so what's going to happen here? So our release finished, and now it's at the final point of our deployment. And so what it's actually showing me is it's deploying to the deployment group. Let's take a look here. Excuse me. Okay, so what's going on now is it's going to our deployment group. A deployment group is actually the servers, the physical servers that we're going to deploy to. And so now it's grabbing the artifact drop, the place our code is stored after it's been built. And now it's creating the website. It's deploying the application to IIS. Cool. And then once this is finished, it'll finalize the job and tell us it's completed. So now remember, we went here, and if I refresh this, we should get our demo site. Let's just double check. Could just take a second to load. While that's doing that, let's take a look at what the deployment group looks like. So we go here to the deployment group. What we can see is our actual server that we've deployed to with an agent installed. And so what we could do is click this, and we see the actual nodes we've deployed to. We can add tags. We can see that our deploy is finished. Let me see if I need to refresh again. Deploy might still be going on. Let's also double check. So let's go here, just open this again. The other thing that we can do, there it is. So it's finished. There it is. So this is our finished website. Like I said, here it is from here before. It triggered this whole release, and then it was able to do the release to the deployment group. If we wanted to, and this is a really great thing we can do, we can go and we can create additional deployment groups. We can add more servers to this deployment group. What you can do is go here to the project settings. You can create an agent pool, add additional agents. One of the things that's really useful is we can use a Azure virtual machine scale set. I think you might have seen me do some videos on it before, but you can set up then an auto scaling scale set of servers. Take this scale set of servers, go ahead and add it to a deploy group, and then you can go ahead and build, delete everything. So we're going to make a change. So let's look at our homepage right here. Everything's set up. Great, great, great. Learn more. Now, I could go ahead and upload my own application. I don't have one to do right now, so let's just show you really quickly making a change. So I'm here in the repository. I could clone this in Git, but I'm going to do it right here in the browser. What I'm going to do is just Azure DevOps project has been successfully set up. I'm going to add a comma. Oops. Great work, Jay. Okay, commit. So now we've committed it. We're going to commit right to master. You normally would want to create your own individual branch and then go through your regular pull request process. But anyway, we've committed this. And so what is that going to do? Well, let's go back to the DevOps starter kit. And if I just refresh this, we can see that my new updated build triggered my new updated change triggered a new build. So now what we're going to see in here is it's going to go through this build process. It's going to restart everything. The only thing that it won't need to do is recreate our OS, our VM, configure all that again. That's already built. So all it really needs to do is go through the process of building everything, publishing everything, deploying everything. And then what we'll see is our change has been made. So it's going through the whole build process. And once it's finished, our change will be done. So I'm going to let this finish the build process. And then when it's done, I'll show you our change and then we'll wrap up. Sound good? Okay, so we've finished our build, and now we're here in our release pipeline, and you can see we are at the deployment. We can see the template validation's been completed. It's going to make sure that if we need new Azure resources, they're created, and then eventually it will add our change right here. And so we can see our diff of the changes we made. We can see that it created a new release, and that release was finalized. And now it's going to finally deploy to our build, or I should say our deployment group. And if we take a look here, we've got release 2. It will finalize our deployment. So when this is done, it should just say succeeded. We'll see it says 1 in process. There it is. It's finished. So this should be all done. So now we're going to go back to the virtual machine, and just refresh. Take a second like it did before. And then because it's just got to restart the IIS site. And if we were doing this, say, with a scale set, we would have a bunch of nodes and see right here, our website is updated with our CI/CD changes. So that's really it. I am going to make myself big now. Ooh, actually, I like this. So
you can only set thumbs up or down for a song playing on your custom stations.
Thank you, Alexa. I got to turn that off next time. Anyhow, there's plenty to learn. There's so much more to do. Let me make myself a little bigger. Woohoo! There we are. So there's so much more to learn and do. If you like to, check out the links below and let me know what you think. I think that this is a great way for people who want to take that DevOps trip to get a handle of it. It's really just a point and click to really get started using CI/CD. So let me know if you got any questions, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Hi everyone, my name is Damien Brady, and today I'm going to be talking to you about DevOps best practices for Azure and VSTS. So I'm a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft, and you can get hold of